Bing Crosby was the most famous voice of the 20th century. And period was characterized by his music, but there was a far less harmonious narrative behind his fame and money. Rumors of strife inside the family. Even when the cameras stopped rolling, his inner turmoil and heartbreaking secrets lingered. Now, at the age of 65, his daughter speaks forward, proving the horrifying rumors that had persisted for years. How dark was the underbelly, underneath all the Hollywood glitz and glamour? Join us as we reveal the truth. Mary Crosby's prophecies. A deeper understanding of her father's life is revealed in Mary Crosby's revelations, illuminating the achievements and challenges that shaped one of the most renowned voices in American history. The mid-1920s was the beginning of Bing Crosby's musical journey. It was at this time that the Rhythm Boys were formed, the group that would later inspire Crosby's love of jazz. His distinctive style, which combined scat singing with silky phrasing, was both innovative and enduring, and it won many listeners. This was the turning point in his career, the instant when his voice seized the country and wouldn't budge. In the early 1930s, Crosby had established himself as a famous performer whose impact went well beyond the realm of theater. An entire wave of people tried to mimic his unique style. Many others tried to imitate his style, including Perry Como and Dean Martin. Controversy in the music industry. Some individuals embodied the latter, more profound resonance of Crosby's music, while others mimicked the soaring, carefree tones of his early years. It was evidence that his voice had revolutionized popular music and a demonstration of his power. But destiny had other plans for him just when he was about to achieve his pinnacle of perfection. The thing that had made Crosby famous was about to be taken away from him due to a severe case of laryngitis. In his early recordings, you could hear the strain on his voice cords. There was a noticeable hoarseness that suggested there was problems underneath. Resting would help his voice repair, the doctors said. Instead, he drank himself to sleep, a behavior that made his health problems worse. A more profound and thoughtful quality began to permeate the golden voice that had before soars with unforced peaks. With the departure of the carefree jazz-infused songs that had first mesmerized listeners, a new era began in the mid-1930s. Their stead were nationally resonant, emotionally intense ballads. As a vocalist whose music was now crafted for general appeal, Crosby had gone from being the master of jazz improvisation to becoming the voice of sentimentality. However, the demands of celebrity began to intrude on his private life as his renown skyrocketed. His plot revolved on a love that appeared to have been written just for the film industry. In 1929, Crosby met Dixie Lee, a bright young star at Fox Studios, and their paths crossed. Their love was instantaneous, and they tied the knot on September 29, 1930, beginning a life-altering adventure for them both. Tragically, Dixie gave up her own potential career to focus on starting a family after being captivated by Crosby's charisma. They worked together to build a haven in Los Angeles, a massive mansion on 4 verdant acres bordering Toluca Lake. Away from the paparazzi and the adoring public, Crosby and Lee were able to create a life together rooted in love, warmth, and the simple pleasures of home. Their joy, however, was not without its share of challenges. Their cherished house was gutted in a fire in December 1943, annihilating 13 years' worth of memories in an instant. A subsequent account in the New York Times described the terrible night, explaining how the removal of Christmas ornaments had caused an uncontrolled fire. Smoldering remnants remain after the mansion was consumed by flames. The collection of musical records belonging to Crosby, as well as his prized treasures from horse racing and golf, were burned to ash. Amidst the rubble, a tiny miracle persisted, despite the near-total destruction. Crosby found a burned athletic sneaker in his locker while sorting through the wreckage. Incredibly, the fire had no effect on the $2,000 in race profits that were contained there. This was the last improbable symbol of perseverance amidst the destruction. But what surprising fact did the daughter of Bing Crosby eventually divulge? Hollywood would rather you not know about the unseen family tragedy that lurked behind his great stardom. Keep watching. The unspoken truths about Bing Crosby's passing. It is necessary to go more into the life of Bing Crosby in order to verify the rumors that his daughter, Mary Crosby, has finally proven. The tragic truths that lie behind the scenes are frequently obscured by Hollywood's glittering lights. Even though Crosby was widely regarded as America's most beloved singer, he expertly concealed a devastating family tragedy from the public eye. While his meteoric climb to fame was well documented, the complexities of his family life were less so. The Pacific Northwest was the starting point for Bing Crosby's voyage. Henry Harry Crosby, Jr. He was born in Tacoma, Washington, on May 3, 1903. His family moved to Spokane in 1906 in quest of greater possibilities, and he was reared there. His English father, bookkeeper Harry Lowe Crosby, and Irish mother, Catherine Harrigan, who was the daughter of a builder from County Mayo, were born into a mixed-race family. Bing grew up in a home that his dad had constructed. He was the fourth of 7 children. He had a natural talent for performing when he was a little boy. The Bingville Bugle was a comic newspaper section that captivated him when he was just 6 years old. A neighbor who found him entertaining started calling him Bingo, and before he knew it, the appellation had been reduced to Bing, a moniker that would remain with him forever. In 1917, Bing Crosby got his start in the entertainment industry as a property boy at the Spokane Auditorium, where he saw such greats as Al Jolson perform. His early record player from his dad sparked his interest in music, which increased over the years. He was a Gonzaga University debate and public speaking champion, but music was his soul's desire. After dropping out of law school, he started his career as a pianist with Al Rinker. It took time for success to materialize. Despite his unreliability due to his jazz-age lifestyle, his skill could not be denied. Bandleader Paul Weidman was captivated by a 1926 performance at the Los Angeles Metropolitan Theater. Crosby and Rinker made $150 weekly after their maiden performance at Chicago's Tivoli Theater that December. After that, composer Harry Barris became a member of the group, and together they became known as the Rhythm Boys. They would go on to perform with legendary jazz artists like Hoagy Carmichael and the Dorsey Brothers. With the 1928 release of his first #1 single, a jazz-infused rendition of Old Man River, Bing's career took off. Discord within the Rhythm Boys arose as a result of his meteoric rise to fame. Separated from the group, Crosby began a solo career that would alter the course of entertainment history. Bing Crosby had become one of the most recognizable voices in the United States by the early 1930s. In 1931, with 10 of the top 50 hits. In 1932, with The Great Broadcast, he broke through in Hollywood, beginning a cinematic career that would last for decades. He became the host of Kraft Music Hall in 1936 and remained in that position for 10 years. Legends such as Frank Sinatra, Perry Como, and Elvis Presley were impacted by his silky, personal vocal style, which transformed popular music. In contrast to his predecessors, Crosby was a master of the microphone, which allowed him to bring the audience closer to the music. He gained famous for his legendary performance of White Christmas and for soothing American soldiers during World War II. He surpassed Jackie Robinson and Pope Pius VII to become America's most beloved guy by 1948, according to Yank magazine. In that year, his songs were heard on more than half of the 80,000 hours of recorded music played each week on American radio, according to Music Digest. When Crosby wasn't busy making music, he was at the forefront of technological innovation. He invested in the first commercial tape recorder in the United States, the Ampex 200, which allowed for groundbreaking editing and overdubbing in audio recordings. Crosby had a significantly more problematic personal life despite his huge accomplishments. Alleged drunkenness and a tense family dynamic were just two of the many problems that plagued his marriage to singer and actress Dixie Lee. Gary, Philip, Dennis, and Lindsay, their 4 boys, all felt their father's expectations while they were growing up. Rumors began to circulate in Crosby's latter years that he was a hard disciplinarian, with claims of emotional and physical abuse joining those of severe parenting. In particular, his son Gary came up in later years to discuss the challenging upbringing he had. A watershed moment in Crosby's life came with Dixie's passing in 1952. The pain of his first wife's death lingered with him even after he wed actress Kathryn Grant again. Particularly Dennis and Lindsay, 2 of his children, battled substance misuse and mental health issues. The public's perception of a happy Hollywood family was drastically altered by their experiences. In spite of all he accomplished in the entertainment industry, Crosby remained a mystery. His longtime buddy Phil Harris and those closest to him both acknowledged that they were never properly acquainted with him. Even as his celebrity skyrocketed, he remained a quiet man who was hesitant to talk about his problems. His professional life was just as complicated as his personal life. Even though he is mostly recognized for his musical accomplishments, he demonstrated his acting chops in films like The Country Girl, in which he played a tormented, unsuccessful actor. Critics praised his performance, which silenced critics who had challenged his acting chops, because the part went against expectations. Still, there were shadowy concerns lurking behind all the innovation and achievement. The Crosby family's fractures deepened throughout the years. The glitz and glamour of Hollywood couldn't hide the inner agony that existed as his boys struggled under the burden of their father's legacy. The daughter of Bing Crosby has finally put an end to long-running rumors. She is 65 years old. Has she divulged any hidden information? Where does Hollywood's golden crooner's facade hide the truth? You won't believe what you hear when you hear the truth. Keep watching. In the shadows, Dixie Lee fights a silent but real battle. Dixie Lee, who had a successful career in her own right, now lived in the shadows caused by someone else's choices. Despite her husband Bing Crosby's meteoric rise to stardom, Dixie had a far more complex connection with the spotlight. Unlike Bing, who flourished in the spotlight, she was never one to totally commit to stardom. She was not delighted by the glittering stage or the thunderous clapping. All they did was make me feel even more alone. Ben Crosby, the century's greatest crooner, claims that she left Hollywood to save her husband's career and to avoid the awkwardness of being the center of attention. The entertainment industry was never her true home, despite her obvious skill. The world saw her as the stunning and gifted actress who had voluntarily let her husband soar to fame. However, underneath her stunning exterior, she longed for something far more basic: love, security, and comfort. According to Gary Crosby's biography Going My Own Way, his mother yearned for love and the kind of intimate moments that were lacking in her marriage to Bing. Bing was an emotionally distant husband and father, and Dixie was left to flounder in a sea of desolation because of it. She found comfort in alcohol as she escaped the inescapable loneliness. Bing overcame his own issues, including his alcoholism, by facing them head-on. On the other hand, Dixie faced an even more intractable battle. Once a peaceful diversion, her drinking became an all-consuming problem that plagued their family. Their formerly tranquil home became a battlefield, resonating with the quiet anguish of a lady who had lost her path, as Mary Crosby subsequently related. Dixie's decline into addiction was gradual. She withdrew into alcohol's grasp, leaving behind just a shell of the person she once was. The vivacity that had previously enthralled viewers had become lifeless. She went from laughing to silently despairing. The shadow of her hardship lingered on her children's life. As their mother lay still on the floor, ensnared by her illness, they carried with them memories that would never mend. Their hearts will always carry the image of her at that moment, broken and unreachable. Symbolic of a mother's tragic fall from grace at the hands of the isolation from which she had fought for so long. Her pain was a constant reminder of what Bing had lost, and its weight hung heavy on his shoulders. The wounds were great for Philip and Dennis, their twin boys. The struggle that Dixie faced was shared by many. Every member of the family felt the effects of the wound, and it changed their lives forever. She left behind a legacy of sadness as a result of her battle, a tragedy that happened in private. Beyond the giddy gaze of the masses, beloved Bing Crosby's family lives in the limelight. Even inside his own family, Bing Crosby's life story of incredible achievement and emotional tragedies was plain to see. A sad reality was revealed in the documentary United via an uncovering. Fetal alcohol syndrome, which affects twins Dennis and Philip, was a result of his drinking while pregnant. Dixie Lee's struggles with drinking had a profound impact on her children. The filmmaker of the documentary, Robert Trachtenberg, was worried about their unusual skull and nose shapes and other distinguishing facial characteristics. In his quest for answers, he sought the opinion of experts at USC, who validated his thoughts. The tragic twins' condition is a stark illustration of the long-term effects of addiction. Bing and Dixie were unprepared to handle the special difficulties their kid would have because fetal alcohol syndrome was not widely known when he was born. The Crosby home was shrouded in secrecy as this discovery exposed the hidden costs of stardom, addiction, and abandonment. There was a complicated and sometimes tense interplay between Bing's ascent to Hollywood's A-list and the creation of his family. He disappeared for extended periods of time due to his hectic schedule, which included filming, radio appearances, and recording sessions, as his career took off. Dixie, who was mainly left to raise their 4 kids by herself, battled alcoholism, which added to the agony of having to shoulder the load. Bing said that his dogged work ethic had taken a toll on him in an honest 1977 interview with Barbara Walters. He came clean about the long-term effects of his absence throughout his kids' early years. He had his boys enrolled in boarding institutions, where he was more of a financial figure than an emotional one. Bing feared the allure of Hollywood even though he had achieved tremendous success. Because he was afraid his children would be corrupted by the glitz and glamour of fame, he instituted a stringent and sometimes harsh domestic regimen. Their upbringing was characterized by strict rules rather than affection, since he was so preoccupied with protecting them from the temptations that come with celebrity. The tension between Bing and his boys was a result of his inflexible attitude. The eldest son, Gary Crosby, reflected on his father's stringent parenting style, saying that he was terrified his children would emulate the luxury and entitlement that he saw in Hollywood. However, rather from encouraging resilience, Bing's efforts only served to cultivate animosity. As his children matured, the gap between his dreams and their realities became wider. The world he had vowed to shield children from ended up causing strife in his own home. After Bing wed Katharine Grant for a second time, he shifted his perspective on parenthood. He rediscovered his passion for spending time with his younger children once he was released from the constant demands of his Hollywood career. His son from a subsequent marriage, Nathaniel Crosby, observed the dissimilarity. Rather than being preoccupied by his work, his father was more present, committed, and engaged. He sunk his teeth into family life with Katharine, drawing a sharp line between his 2 sets of relatives. Bing was still the center of controversy, despite his reputation as America's adored crooner. There were those who loved him, but there were also many who saw him as a symbol of mainstream, safe entertainment. A creative who lacked the defiant streak of his peers. Even so, his legacy was mostly unblemished until Gary, his eldest son, produced Going My Own Way in 1983, following his death in 1977. The meticulously constructed portrayal of Bing Crosby as a doting dad was destroyed by the biography. In sharp contrast to the public's view of the renowned performer, Gary's allegations of emotional and physical abuse presented a bleak image. The harm had already been done, even if some, including his son Philip, had doubted the seriousness of Gary's accusations. Bing Crosby's legacy would be changed irrevocably by the disclosures that rocked the entertainment industry. However, what was reality like behind the scenes of Hollywood's glamorous image? Did he strive for absolute perfection, or was he a caring father? Keep watching to find out what happened. My last thoughts about Mary Crosby. An ode to a daughter. An idol to the world at large, he was. He was just dad to me. My confidant, my savior. He instructed me in the art of fishing, hunting, and baseball throwing. He taught all 6 of his boys the traditional values and skills that any good parent instills in his offspring. However, there was also his professional side, which existed alongside the cozy aspects of family life. I always thought that everyone could do what my dad did since he was so professional. We never rehearsed our Christmas concerts the way people would think. Like any good family would, we sung Christmas songs while eating breakfast. On the other hand, we were punctual and knew every word and note by the time we arrived on stage. He brought an air of carefree joy and ease to the situation. It was obvious to him that he was a famous celebrity. But he wasn't interested in stardom. What mattered was his potential use of it. His modesty, lack of boastfulness, and unwavering belief in the power of his influence made him an exemplary leader. Instead of bragging about his #1 singles or sold-out shows as he was dying, he talked about the things he had done to help the soldiers and the war activities he had supported. Unfortunately, destiny had other plans for him than to enlist in the military. He didn't have the maturity level to serve in either world war. He persisted nonetheless. Whatever he could, he did. Fundraising for war bonds, entertaining troops serving abroad, and making hospital visits. His most heartfelt acts, though, were the letters he wrote and treasured for the families of fallen troops. Not long ago, we discovered them concealed in the attic. They were found in a box by my mom as she was going through old documents. Some had been sent back because the people who were supposed to receive them never came home. Some came from families who wanted to express their gratitude for the happiness he has brought to their lives. He had preserved each and every one. Next, there was Christmas in the Snow. Unbeknownst to us, that song would go on to become something monumental. Its 1941 debut followed closely on the heels of Pearl Harbor. And by 1942 it had transformed into a hymn for returning troops. It was my youth, in my mind. We continued to sing it together every year at Christmas. A single recollection of it eludes me. There are far too many pictures of his life spent in the company of music, loved ones, and him. However, what unknown tales may be concealed within those long-lost letters? A musician, a national hero, a parent? Was it music or something more profound that he was most gifted in? Post your opinions down here.